interdisciplinary artist, and I make work about environmental reciprocity. This show, called How Do You Know the Whitetail, started from a performance that I did in 2019 where I gutted a deer. And since then, I've been thinking a lot about how our relationship with deer varies regionally in the United States. The relationship between humans and deer is a good example of a reciprocal relationship between people and animals, and the way that we affect each other's population, and specifically how hunting culture is so tied up in how we think about deer and how we oftentimes interact with deer most while killing them either on purpose or on accident by a vehicle. Soon after that performance, I made this piece, and I made it looking at an image that was taken when the animal was being butchered. And so I was thinking about when something sort of transitions from being an animal towards being food, thinking about how industrialized agriculture takes away our ability to really observe that process unless you are specifically the one doing it. We don't really see animals being broken down from body to food anymore, and that's something that I find really interesting in terms of it being a consequence of industrialization. I made this piece with international orange canvas to sort of start tying in motifs from hunting culture, with orange being one of the colors that hunters wear in order to signal to other hunters, please don't shoot me. And so that also became sort of a through line in the work, was referring back to this color as a way to keep referencing the aesthetics of hunting culture. This piece is a sort of recreation of my thesis piece that I made at the end of my master's program at Cranbrook. It's called Pantry, Medicine Cabinet, and Mausoleum. And it's a, to me, roadkill dough, and can see all of these sort of little shelves that in the installation will have containers of foraged medicinal and edible plants. And for me, the insertion of those plants is sort of a parent gesture, an ecology. In this iteration, I was interested in making a couple more moments to sort of resonate on an emotional level. Like this ear, for example, I feel like is much more limp. It feels much more sort of crumpled relative to the first iteration, where I feel like that one was much more static. And so in this version of the piece, I was really trying to make more emotional gestures. So another motif that I arrived at while working on the show was the butt out. And so this is a tool that is used during the gutting process to remove intestinal tissue, and you use it by inserting it into the deer's rectum, twisting and pulling like spaghetti. And I feel like this is an interesting example of sort of the lack of respect and spirituality that is oftentimes present in hunting, and also has an interesting gender and sexuality politics around it when we think about the sort of the like heterosexual machismo of hunting, and the way that this is both a part of that but also feels sort of counterintuitive in a way because of the sodomizing of it all. And so yeah, I feel like for me, this object has a lot of interesting meaning when it comes to the lack of respect, and then also the politics around the gender and sexuality of hunting. When I'm working large scale like this, something that is important to me as an environmental artist is using recycled materials. And so I like to think of these sculptures similar to what people call bottle bricking, which is where you would take a plastic bottle or container and fill it with like softer, flimsier garbage as a way to consolidate trash and keep it like occupying a smaller amount of space. And some people you can literally build out of bottle bricks, but you can also just use it to dispose of garbage. And so this way I use recycled packing materials and foam and paper as the like interior structures for these large scale objects, as a way to use this recycled material, not create demand for things like buying new foam. So instead of going out and buying sheets of foam at Home Depot, I can just use recycled styrofoam and achieve the exact same effect, and it prevents that styrofoam from ending up at the landfill. I'm not trying specifically to make work about waste or pollution, but this is a way for me to have some praxis as an environmental artist, using recycled materials in the work in a way that isn't necessarily visible, but for me is still meaningful in the process. Thanks for listening. I hope to see you at the opening at Swords into Plowshares on June 5th from 6 to 9.